Hi, thank you for tuning in to Dynamic Art LLC. I'm your host, Daniel Butler, and today we're going to do an illustration of Nicki Minaj. Let's get to it. Thank you for tuning in, and as you can see, this is our illustration of our Nicki Minaj poster. And what we're going to go over here is basically how this was put together, design and composition for sellability, what looks attractive, and why I made some of the different choices that I did as far as laying it out the way that I did. Now, this is our finished piece, and we're going to go ahead and move into the construction of it. So first thing I want to do is I want to start with our primary piece, which is this piece up here that says Barbie with her cleavage showing, and we'll just get into that. Okay, so here we have our complete piece of what I initially drew for our primary part here. And as you can see, these edges here are rough because they're going to fade out in the image, and I knew that going into this prior to it, and I didn't want to waste time drawing stuff that was not going to be seen. And so let's just go ahead and back everything out of here, and we can just take a little more in-depth look at the construction of it. Alright, and we're going to take it back to white. Alright, and we're going to bring in our construction lines. So from the beginning, I knew that I was going to design this where those particular pieces were going to hang off the edge and you weren't going to need to see them. And the whole point in this is I wanted to make sure that the focus point was right here where her Barbie chain is and where her cleavage is, because we're looking for stuff that attracts. And so just like the same reason why she wore it, it was attractive, is the same reason why we're going to paint it. We want to paint things that are sellable and that are attractable. And so it's just the fact that sex is going to sell in this industry that we're in, and so we're going to design things around stuff that appeals. So this cleavage area with the chain and the jewelry, we're going to make the centerpiece of our design. And so from there, we're going to add in our hard lines so that we know what colors need to go where, and so we can go from there and drop in our solids or our flat colors. Once we drop in our flat colors, I did do something that I normally don't do, which is normally I draw underneath my lines, but every now and then, depending on how I feel, I'll draw on top, and that's what I did here. So there are not a lot of layers as far as all the shading like I would normally do, but as you can see, I need to have a good contrast between the edges where things start to get dark and where her skin would actually come and where her hair pops out. And so we'll add in our dark layers right here. And as you can see, the purpose in adding in all these dark colors is because we want all this stuff to pop out. We want your eyes to go here. We did our chain last, and so we'll add our chain in here. And as you can see, it looks like it's floating, but we'll add in her lip color and her cheek color, and then we'll go ahead and add in our bling, and then these are the parts that will cover the actual hair. And then we'll go back to our gray background because we want to check and make sure that there are no gaps where you'll see stuff popping through because it's not solid behind it. Now, from there, we'll go ahead and we'll move into our other piece here, and let's zoom out. This is going to be more of a headshot, and the reason why I was zoomed in there is because I wanted to show you one of the effects on this. Now, this color palette that you see over here was used for both this picture and the other picture, and that way they would correspond with each other and colors would look similar. But one thing that I wanted to show you is just an illusion. This had a gridded, she had a dress that had like a gridded diamond, black diamond pattern on it, and I didn't want to spend forever designing that. And that's what this really is about. It's about laying these things out as quick as we can, but also having something that is appealing and attractive. So what I did was, if we go up here to our layers, I'm going to turn off the shadow. Okay, and then I'm going to also turn off the highlights. And as you can see here, we just have a flat grid pattern. And what I did was I had issues drawing it on the curb as many times as I had to draw these lines to create these little square blocks so that it would look like it's curving across the body with the line. So what I did was I just went ahead and drew them across flat because it's quicker and faster. And then I came back in and I added the shadow. By adding the shadow, it gave the illusion that these areas are a lot darker, and then where the highlights hit, it gives the illusion that these areas are what pop out. Add that with the bling, and we were able to create a piece that looked a lot better when it came to looking more three-dimensional on the piece. And as you can see here, it looks more like it's curved, and we saved a lot of time. From there, let's just take a look at a trophy that we designed for this piece as well. I'm not going to look at both of them or all of them, but just one thing that I wanted to note right here is that sometimes when you are creating a trophy or an item that is round, it's going to end up with a secondary light, and that comes on the back end of it. And what that is reflections from the other things that are catching light as well, and they would be sending light through it. And so I just wanted to show that real quick because that's something that sometimes people don't understand, like, why is there a second light there? Well, because that light bounces off of the other areas, and that's what hit there. Okay, so back to our completed project here. Now we have everything completed, and let's just go ahead and back out everything so that we can see how it's constructed and put together and what the purpose and the things that we did were. That way we know why these things are designed this way. Right. Okay, so here we are, and we have a black canvas, and by itself it is nothing spectacular. So we want to add a little bit of interest. And one of the things that I love about these particular programs is that Photoshop and Illustrator work great together. Illustrator has a lot of predetermined patterns in there, but you can take them and manipulate them in different ways to fit what you want to do. And by adding this particular pattern from Illustrator into this particular design, I'm able to create a border that looks interesting. It has a nice flow to it. It has a pattern type tribal look once we do a repeat of the graphic and flip them. And so we've already taken our piece and we've added a little bit more interest to it. Now I decided, because I wanted it to have more of a wild and crazy effect to go with this particular person's personality, we're going to do some ink splats in there. And this is just the background. This is just to go with the overall flow, because I didn't want it to be too stiff and rigid. I still wanted it to have a free flow to it. So once we added this particular background in, we can add our primary image. Bam. Now as you can see, things are flowing together. The colors in the hair and the colors in the background flow together. And even though this looks pretty bright on screen, all this stuff in print is going to be a lot darker. It looks bright because there's a light behind the screen, but in print, these things are going to fade back into the background beautifully, and it's going to put emphasis on the areas that we want you to look at, which are like right here where her Barbie chain is and her cleavage, because these are things that are attractive when it comes to something we're going to sell and we want people to buy. And so just like for the same reasons that women wear these particular things, these are the same reasons why we're going to paint these particular things. And so we'll add her in, and then we'll go ahead and add our second person in here. Now one thing I do want to point out is if you look over here at this arm, I needed to move her away from the edge because her hair was too close to it and it just looked unprofessional, or at least something looked off. So we moved it out, and I had to add in the rest of her arm. And so that's what you see me doing here. Now, sometimes you'll have to make those adjustments. Sometimes when you pre-plan a piece out, it may not go according to exactly how you wanted it to be, and you'll have to go in and add those extra pieces that it may be missing. One other thing that I wanted to make sure that we put in here and explain is an effect that I put on this last trophy right here, and we'll zoom in and I'll just explain it. When I designed it in Illustrator, these were solid colors, and the problem is this is a glass. This American award right here is like a crystal. It's like a glass that's in the shape of a pyramid, so it needed to be see-through. And let me take off the outer glow here. So the way that I accomplished that was I took the eraser tool and dropped the opacity down to about 60%, and I just started going over the edges that I wanted to show. And what that did is it made it transparent so you could still see the background, and so it looks more like glass. That way it gives a better effect. Now, I added the glow just because I wanted it to stand out in print, but as you can see, this is our finished piece. And so everything's composed on the idea that we're creating things that are attractive, from the background and the colors to what people are going to pay attention to. And that's key when it comes to something that you want to sell. I've also managed to keep a lot of these particular designs and patterns fairly quick, and they look juvenile once you actually zoom in. Nothing spectacular, you know, you see dots and circles, but when you take a look at a photograph and you zoom out, this is pretty much what you're seeing. You're seeing dots and circles and squares, and so it still keeps an interesting look, but at the same time we're able to create it in a way that is going to be set up for speed and time, because in this particular industry, time is always against us, and we want to get certain things out as quick as we can. So with that said, let's go ahead and we can now move on to the printing part of this and see what our finished product looks like. Please subscribe so that we can blow up this channel. Have a good day.